Today we are talking about the return of AI optimism. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today's main episode is about something that's a little bit subtle. At any given time, there's a bit of a give and take in terms of how generally optimistic versus pessimistic people are about not only AI, but technology in general. I think the more that technology has gotten tied up with politics, the more contentious these vibe shifts have been, but I wanted to talk about a subtle shift towards the optimistic side of things that I've seen over the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm not going to go deep into all of the Tesla and SpaceX announcements, but this is certainly part of it. Between an autonomous car and a bus, robots that will be available for sale in a couple of years, and a rocket from space being caught by giant crane chopsticks on its first try, Elon's set of companies have certainly contributed a lot to this vibe over the last week or so. Now, for some time, it's been clear that there is a narrative battle around technology. We are, in fact, around 1 year from the anniversary of the Techno-Optimist Manifesto by Mark Andreessen. He wouldn't have needed to write that if he didn't think that a counter-narrative was taking hold. And indeed, it's in two essays today that I wanted to focus. One by Anthropics CEO Dario Amodei, and the other by VC Vinod Khosla. Dario dropped his 15,000-word piece, Machines of Loving Grace, last week. Its subtitle, How AI Could Transform the World for the Better, makes it clear what the agenda of this piece is. Indeed, Dario writes, I think and talk a lot about the risks of powerful AI. The company I'm the CEO of, Anthropic, does a lot of research on how to reduce these risks. Because of this, people sometimes draw the conclusion that I'm a pessimist or doomer who thinks AI will be mostly bad or dangerous. I don't think that at all. In fact, one of my main reasons for focusing on risks is that they're the only thing standing between us and what I see as a fundamentally positive future. I think that most people are underestimating just how radical the upside of AI could be, just as I think most people are underestimating how bad the risks could be. So basically, what Dario is doing in this essay is trying to describe, quote, what a world with powerful AI might look like if everything goes right. In other words, and I'll come back to this when we get to some of the critiques of this piece, he is not trying to present a balanced argument here. He's trying to paint a picture of what the best case scenario could be. He breaks his essay into 5 sections: biology and health, neuroscience and mind, economic development and poverty, peace and governance, work and meaning. But for our purposes today, I'm going to talk about some of his big takeaways. Now first, one thing that's useful is what he means by his terminology of powerful AI. He basically uses powerful AI in substitution for AGI, which he says is a term he doesn't like. He writes, by powerful AI, I have in mind an AI model likely similar to today's LLMs in form, although it might be based on a different architecture, with the following properties. In terms of pure intelligence, it is smarter than a Nobel Prize winner across most relevant fields: biology, programming, math, engineering, writing, etc. This means it can prove unsolved mathematical theorems, write extremely good novels, write difficult codebases from scratch, etc. In addition to just being a smart thing you talk to, it has all the interfaces available to a human working virtually, including text, audio, video, mouse and keyboard control, and internet access. It does not just passively answer questions. Instead, it can be given tasks that take hours, days, or weeks to complete, and then goes off and does those tasks autonomously in the way a smart employee would, asking for clarification as necessary. It does not have a physical embodiment, but it can control existing physical tools, robots, or laboratory equipment through a computer. He sums it up as a country of geniuses in a data center. Now, he also gets into what it's going to take to get there, but since that's really not the point of the piece, I want to focus on these areas of improvement. His first category, again, is biology and health. He writes, my basic prediction is that AI-enabled biology and medicine will allow us to compress the progress that human biologists would have achieved over the next 50 to 100 years into 5 to 10 years. He refers to this as the compressed 21st century. What does that mean? Reliable prevention and treatment of nearly all natural infectious diseases, elimination of most cancer, very effective prevention and effective cures for genetic diseases, prevention of Alzheimer's, improved treatments of most other ailments, biological freedom, and doubling the human lifespan. The second category that he digs into is neuroscience and mind. He writes, I expect AI to accelerate neuroscientific progress along 4 distinct routes, all of which can hopefully work together to cure mental illness and improve function. Those routes are traditional molecular biology, chemistry, and genetics, fine-grained neural measurement and intervention, advanced computational neuroscience, and behavioral interventions. The net result of this, once again within that 5 to 10 AI accelerated year period: 1, most mental illness can probably be cured. 2, conditions that are very structural may be more difficult but not impossible. 3, effective genetic prevention of mental illness seems possible. 4, everyday problems we don't think of as a clinical disease will also be solved. And 5, human baseline experience can be much better. One note on this section, he says, I also suspect that improved mental health will ameliorate a lot of other societal problems, including ones that seem political or economic. Dario's third category is economic development and poverty. Some of the benefits from AI he sees are distribution of health interventions, improved economic growth, food security, mitigating climate change, improving issues with inequality within countries. And he says, overall, I am optimistic about quickly bringing AI's biological advances to people in the developing world. He also says, I am hopeful, though not confident, that AI can also enable unprecedented economic growth rates and allow the developing world to at least surpass where the developed world is now. Number 4, peace and governance. He writes, suppose everything in the first 3 sections goes well. Disease, poverty, and inequality are significantly reduced, and the baseline of human experience is raised substantially. It does not follow that all major causes of human suffering are solved. Humans are still a threat to each other. He basically goes on to point out that although there is a trend of technological improvement and economic development leading to democracy and peace, it is at best a very loose trend with frequent and recent backsliding. Now, this is the most complicated section in some ways. Dario recognizes that AI is not inherently a democracy-promoting technology, even if he sees many of the benefits leading to increased support for democracy as opposed to authoritarianism. However, even in an essay that is theoretically about the upside benefits, this is the one with the most ifs and caveats. Lastly, he talks about work and meaning. Dario writes, even if everything in the preceding 4 sections goes well, not only do we alleviate disease, poverty, and inequality, but liberal democracy becomes the dominant form of government, and existing liberal democracies become better versions of themselves. At least one important question still remains. It's great that we live in such a technologically advanced world as well as a fair and decent one, but with AIs doing everything, how will humans have meaning? For that matter, how will they survive economically? This, he says, is a more difficult question than the others. And while he gets into a bunch of specifics, I think the most resonant point comes when he writes, I do think in the long run, AI will become so broadly effective and so cheap that our current economic setup will no longer make sense, and there will be a need for a broader societal conversation about how the economy should be organized. He continues, while that might sound crazy, the fact is that civilization has successfully navigated major economic shifts in the past, from hunter-gatherer to farming, farming to feudalism to industrialism. He then goes on to speculate around what that shift might look like, but really the point is that we're going to have a big conversation about it. Ultimately, he calls all of this a world worth fighting for. He writes, if all of this really does happen over 5 to 10 years, the defeat of most diseases, the growth in biological and cognitive freedom, the lifting of billions of people out of poverty to share the new technologies, a renaissance of liberal democracy and human rights, I suspect everyone watching it will be surprised by the effect it has on them. I don't mean the experience of personally benefiting from all the new technologies, although that will certainly be amazing. I mean the experience of watching a long-held set of ideals materialize in front of us all at once. So what are people's responses? Many in the technology world are represented by Y Combinator partner Jared Freeman, who writes, it's hard to overstate just how great the bull case for AI is. Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of AI at Microsoft, says we must not lose sight of the transformational benefits of AI. Boyan Tongas, formerly of NVIDIA, says, there have been several other similar essays over the past few months from other top AI voices, but in my opinion, this one is the most thoughtful and most detailed so far. It steers away from many ideological squabbles that have become all too common these days, and provides ample citations to bolster his points and help with further reading and self-guided research. Over in the EA, Stephen Pimentel writes, this is the beginning of Anthropics' OpenAI arc. I don't mean that in a bad way. Now, I can only speculate on what exactly he means by that, but to the extent that one sees OpenAI shifting away from the type of risk focus they had in the past, maybe that's what Stephen is referring to. And of course, these aren't the only takes. Liran Shapira, the host of the Doom Debates podcast, says, posting a capabilities bull case while sweeping the intractable alignment problem into almost a footnote, he's distracting from the rotten assumption that alignment can happen on the same timeline as capabilities. This is the real Dario. Another Sam Altman figure, another Icarus. Jason Kincaid disagreed a bit, saying, respectfully, I don't think this is an accurate assessment. Anthropic has done more to legitimize the alignment problem than any other lab, and he talks about it in every interview. Nobody will listen to Dario if he's Mr. Doomer. By painting an optimistic vision, he has more credibility when he says it's time to pump the brakes. Liran says, that logic makes sense if alignment is tricky but tractable. If it's not, then he's just digging the frame deeper, implying the problem is tractable. Zero acknowledgement that we may be plowing forward to our doom against an intractable problem. And what's sane to do in that case? Andrew Critch writes, I don't think Dario's essay is a distraction, but rather a necessary answer to the question, what future are we fighting for? From where I stand, writings like Dario's Machines of Loving Grace are important for helping AI developers to pull together towards a positive vision of the future. Now, as I said, there was another essay that also recently came out by Vinod Khosla, but since this episode is getting long, I will leave that for another time. I'm going to keep coming back to this theme of whether we are seeing a shift to optimism, because I think it's a really interesting one, particularly in light of what I have to assume will be an increase in the regulatory conversations following the election next month. For now, though, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace.